Hi guys, this is our first lesson in fine art from Art from the Start. My name's David and I'm going to take you through a hand-in-hand tutorial on drawing an apple with shading. The reason why I wanted to start this lesson off with shading is because the fundamentals of fine art is our understanding of the three-dimensional world and light and darkness. So I thought that it'd be a good idea to start with an everyday object such as an apple, so then we can understand clearly together how light and darkness affects the three-dimensional world. What we need for this lesson is masking tape. Not necessary, but I'll show you why we'll use masking tape. Later on, we'll need a rubber. We will always make mistakes, and mistakes are fine. I don't see mistakes as a problem. We can always rectify it in art, and sometimes we can embrace it. And of course, we'll need our trusted HB pencil. So I'll get started now. So I'll move the pencil and the rubber out the way. So if you could start with me and follow me step by step. So first of all, I'm going to put the masking tape on the paper. I'm going to take a bit of the tack off of the masking tape, and we're going to try and produce the best square that we can. The best square that we can with the masking tape. I always love to frame my works of art, and I find masking tape offers a beautiful and crisp frame when we finish the work. We don't need to stick it down too thoroughly, because we will eventually want to pull it off. So we've created somewhat of a square in the middle of the paper. Now, roughly with your pencil, once that's done, and please feel free to pause the video whenever you feel that I've gone a bit too fast. You can absolutely pause it or go back just to make sure you've done things how you feel they should have been done. So just roughly, can you see the way I'm holding the pencil? I want you to also hold the pencil like this and roughly just softly graze it across the square that we just made, colouring it in. And if you feel you can go faster, go faster. But what you want to do is you want to create a consistent colour in the box. You don't want to go too hard on places. You want to keep it all consistent. Once that's done with a finger, you just want to go over it and blend it all in. I find that just adding a bit of colour to the background really sets off the actual sketch and produces such a contrast, especially when we take the masking tape off. You'll see such a contrast. And this is something that I will be doing throughout many of my lessons, because I'm really into framing pictures. I like the idea of things being framed. But on the odd occasion, you know, sometimes we can go a bit off the beaten track and sketch without using it. and that's absolutely fine. Or painting, or colouring in, or watercolours. We'll be doing all of those eventually. But the first thing that I wanted to start off with is something that would give us some foundations. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the center of the page, and lightly we are going to create a small curve like so. Very lightly. The reason why I tell you to do it lightly is because if you do make a mistake, you always have your trusted rubber right there waiting for you. So if you felt that you made a mistake, you can absolutely rub it out, and you want to make it just soft, a soft line like this. Then we're going to do the stem of the apple. And towards the top of the stem, it's going to be a bit more thick as it goes inside. The apple is a bit more thin. So that's the second thing that we're going to do. Now, at the top of the stem, the apple, I call it the shoulders of the apple. We start to form roughly the shoulders of the apple as it goes around, and then it goes down like so. So you want to create a shoulder for the apple. And then on the other side, you want to do the same with some somewhat aspects of symmetry. And symmetry means sort of mirrored. So you want some aspect of symmetry on the other side. And then you'll have the foot of the apple, the bottom of the apple, and the bottom of the apple usually, depending on what type of apple it is, will have these bumps that the apple sat on. So it's all rough, it's all sort of lightly done. We've not committed to it yet. If there are mistakes, we can absolutely change those mistakes. So we're just having a look at our apple, and your apple should look something like this. Ensure that these bumps are all on an invisible line you might see here. And it doesn't matter if your apple is not absolutely a mirror image of the apple that I've just drawn. And the reason is because in nature, nothing really looks identical to something else. There's always some sort of unique difference, and we can appreciate by drawing something organic, such as an apple, that there will be differences between all of our apples, and that's absolutely fine. But just as long as we have some of the key characteristics of the apple, such as the stem, the shoulders over here, and then the feet, it will look like an apple. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put an added leaf that will come off from the stem. And this leaf will just go over here and just flick at the end there. And then it will come back into the stem. And like I said before, your leaf may not look exactly like mine, but that's okay, because no leaves in nature look identical, and we can appreciate there will be some difference. So you can see that there will be a line of the shoulder in the leaf, and we can carefully rub that out because we did it lightly anyway, so we can carefully rub that out, as the leaf is actually in front of the apple. And we will do lessons on perspective eventually, but this is just to understand shading and shadows and light. So as we see, the leaf is actually in front of the shoulder of the apple. Now, this is what we call a 2D image. And the reason why it's a 2D image is because it's essentially a line drawing of an apple. But we don't know where light's coming from, we don't know where the shadows are. And it doesn't appear to be a 3D image. And that's what we're going to do with shading now. Shading is going to give us the illusion that this apple is really there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start on this shoulder and we're going to draw a darker line on the side, and we're going to first start coloring in the apple from this edge. So in order to start shading, what we do is we first color in dark shades around the edge where the light can't be seen, and it might be worth actually explaining why the dark shadows are here. If the dark shadows are here, what we do know is that the light source will be coming from here. So if the light is here and the light can't be seen here, it creates dark shadows. So initially we know that there's a light source coming from here. So because the light source is coming from here, this side of the apple will not be as dark as this side. So we will compensate darkness or lack of light in this side with shading. So as you see, we're building darkness around the edges, and as we're coming in where sources of light or even secondary sources of light are refracting on the apple, the apple gets lighter until we get to a point where the apple will be around this colour. So we'll start to colour in the apple now, the rest of the apple, this colour. And notice the strokes that I'm doing is to accentuate the curve of the apple. I'm not doing strokes this way. If you've been doing strokes this way, you can rub it out and start again and do strokes accentuating the curve. So as I shade around the shoulder of the apple, or say the belly of the apple, you see I'm curving to show you that it's a 3D object and it's curved. As I go towards the front of the apple, it's more straight because it's in line with our eyes, so we don't really see a curve from this edge. But as it goes around the corner, then we start to pick up a curve once again. And we'll leave the top for now. And we'll work now on the shoulder. Okay, now we'll work on the feet. We'll make sure that the feet, because light is not, cannot really get to the bottom of the apple. So we have these dark shadows coming from the bottom of the apple. There's no rush in art. There's no rush. You see, the beautiful thing about art is to learn patience, and it's also to believe in yourself. So if you feel that this is difficult for you, I want you to tell yourself that you're absolutely capable of doing this. Believe me. You absolutely can do it. And you should always give things a go. Believe in yourself that you can do it, because that's sometimes all that's needed. You really do have the capability. It's just about believing that you can do it. So as we're growing up, we're gradually stepping up in gradients. We're learning how much pressure to be applied on the pencil. Now I cheated a little bit and I said that the light is coming from here, but in reality that was just to prove a point here, but the light is actually coming from here. However, in a 3D room, the light would be coming from this direction. So in order for that to look more, in order for the apple to look more realistic, there needs to be a bit more of a shadow on the edge over here. So we're going to work on the edge, but it's not going to be as dark as this side, because that's a side where the sun isn't getting to at all. See, light is an interesting thing. So we're building even more layers of darkness, and particularly we want to create a uniform darkness over here. We might need to build up more on the side, but that's okay. Sometimes we need to revise and go back on our work just to see if it's all marrying up with the whole composition. And a composition, we could call this a composition, our art composition. And we have the darknesses around here. We left the top of the apple. We're going to come and do that in a moment, but we're going to do a good part. Okay, we've done quite, this part was a new sort of difficult part. Let's put a bit of darkness around his shoulder here. Let's add a bit more darkness. Let's do a bit of a fun part now. Let's do a fun part. Let's colour in the stem. So this doesn't need any shading. This can be just one block of dark. dark strokes and we fill it up, and that should be done. Yeah. And just at the base, we can make it a bit dark. Let's cast it. The stem's actually casting a shadow of its own. And around the shoulder, it's going to be dark. It's going to be a bit dark, and then we're going to, with our strokes, indicate that the apple is curved once again, so we're using the strokes to indicate the curvature of the apple. You know, this is how all great artists started. They always started with somebody to teach them the techniques. So if you ever feel that you're not an artist, all artists started with a teacher who taught them the tricks and the skills in order for them to go on and create their own masterpieces eventually. Okay, so we have a rough idea of the apple now. The apple is starting to come together. And now we're going to go into the leaf. So in the leaf we're going to do the stem. So with a sharp bit of the pencil, we're just going to find its middle center, and it doesn't need to be perfect. It's nature. Wonderful thing about nature is nothing is perfect, or at least our interpretation of perfect. So we do the stem, and then we shade it with the rough part of our pencil. Dark, not too dark, somewhat dark. And what we'll do is we're going to run our fingers over it once we're finished. And have you noticed I'm not trying to colour it in, I'm just sort of doing squiggly lines, but I'm filling up the majority of the leaf. I'm trying to create an illusion that this is a leaf with veins in it that you can't really identify, but they are there. And with my finger, I don't know if that's good enough finger, I might use a small finger, but I want you to see at the same time. With my finger, I'm just going to work in the sketches. I don't want to go too much towards the end there because my finger's too fat, unfortunately, to get to the end. But if you can do that, by all means, go for it, because it will really do wonders to the piece. Okay, so this is what we've got to so far, and so far it's good, but I noticed that there could be a bit more darker pieces on there. I don't know, I just feel it's not dark enough yet. So let's go back on this area and make it a bit more darker. And time again, this kind of thing will happen. You'll step away from your work and you'll think it's not quite finished. But that's okay, you can always go back on your work and improve it. So I'm just going to add a darker shade. I'm pressing more aggressively on the pencil. I'm going to add a streak of darkness around the top of this apple here. Just Oh, your apple should look really juicy by now, I'm sure. I would love to see a picture, so if you do have pictures of your apple once it's finished and you want to send them in and we can put them on the website, please feel free to do so. We'd love to see them. And just on the shoulder over here, we're going to make this shoulder just a bit more darker. I'm really pressing in the pencil now. I'm not sure that the HB pencil has done this apple justice, but nevertheless, it should be fine. It should be fine. I mean, you can tell it's an apple, really. I've left this section here, but I ought to just fill it in because I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that area in a moment. It's where our handy rubber will come in. So as we get to the bottom, yeah, okay. So let's, I don't know, well, when I look at this, I do feel we could do a bit more down here. So let's try and get these feet a bit more dark. I think that should be okay-ish. Now we get that rubber and we are going to lightly rub away at the places where the light is hitting our apple. And the light seems to be hitting our apple. I'm using the corner of the rubber here, and I'm not using it to rub out mistakes. No, I'm actually using this rubber to now sort of look like the light is hitting it. So the light is also hitting over here and a few elements over here. So I feel that this area could be a bit more dark. And then there'll be a bit over here. And then just a tiny bit over here in the corners. This is coming from refracted light that's probably been emitted from the table. And just with your finger, just go over some parts. With your finger, just blend it all together. And the last thing that we'll do, just to really set this off, is draw a small line down here. Just a line to the side over here. I think I may have gone a bit too far. So maybe like that. With our finger, just sort of rub it in. Rub it underneath the feet too. That's our shadow. The shadow of our apple. So it's like the light is coming from up here. The light is coming from up here, around about here. But because it's sat on the table, the light is being bounced from the table onto the side of the apple. So what we've kind of worked on here is the understanding that if the light source doesn't reach the object, it casts darker shades. And what we've learned here is to create gradual shading on the lighter parts of the area, and also use of the rubber to indicate where the light source is directly hitting. So now we can take off our masking tape and it will reveal exactly why I like to use masking tape. You can see when we rubbed the pencil in earlier with our fingers, it's created a contrast from the white paper. And this is our first lesson on shading, drawing an apple. And you can sign your name right here. And you can put today's date. So whatever today's date is, you can place it over here. Well done. I look forward to seeing you on lesson 2.